All right, we're back with part 2. This is a really long chapter. Sorry, friends. Where did we leave off? Oh, right here.
Yep.
Okay, so they're in Gringotts, which, if you've ever been to Universal, is like so cool.
See, when I went, they did not have Diagon Alley built yet. They just had Hogwarts.
After you read this and all of the other ones and watch all the movies, go to Harry Potter World. It's awesome.
You can also look at it online too, and there are a bunch of videos so you can see what it looks like in real life. So
awesome. Okay. Morning, said Hagrid to a free goblin. We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe. Do you have his key, sir? Got it here somewhere, said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on their right, weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals. Got it, said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. This seems to be in order. And I've also got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore, said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest. It's about the you-know-what in Vault 713. The goblin read the letter carefully. Very well, he said, handing it back to Hagrid. I will have someone take you down to both vaults. Griphook? Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all the dog biscuits back inside his pockets, he and Harry followed Griphook toward one of the doors leading off the hall. What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? Harry asked. Can't tell you that, said Hagrid mysteriously. Very secret. Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me. More'n my job's worth, tell you that. Griphook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downward, and there were small, little railway tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks toward them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and were off. At first they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, left, middle fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage and twisted around to see if it was a dragon, but too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and floor. I never know, Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite? Stalagmite's got an M in it, said Hagrid, and don't ask me questions now. I think I'm going to be sick. He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze nuts. All yours, smiled Hagrid. All Harry's. It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep, and all the time there had been a small fortune belonging to him buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into a bag. The gold ones are galleons, he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon, and 29 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough. Right, that should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you. He turned to Griphook. Vault 713 now, please. And can we go more slowly? 1 speed only, said Griphook. I don't know about you, but I would not like that conversion system for the money. What do you think?
I think it'd be pretty cool. I wish that our banks looked more like Gringotts.
Yeah,
so
but
you basically get a free roller coaster ride when you go to your vault.
That is true. But you have 17 silver sickles in a galleon and 12 nuts in a sickle. That's just confusing. Why can't they make it easy?
Well, that also seems like the way that coin is in Britain as well. They have these shillings, they have pounds. We just have $1.
They don't have shillings anymore.
They don't have shillings.
That's false.
Well,
I've been to Great Britain.
I haven't.
He hasn't.
No.
Do you want to start reading?
Sure.
Okay.
Just yeah. All right. Are we here?
They were going.
They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled round tight corners. They went rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leaned over the side to try to see what was down at the dark bottom. But Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. "Stand back," said Griphook importantly. He struck the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. "How often do you check to see if anyone's inside?" Harry asked. "About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault, Harry was sure, and he leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package, wrapped up in brown paper, laying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deeply inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but knew better than to ask. "Come on, back in this infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep me mouth shut," said Hagrid. One wild cart ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside Gringotts. Harry didn't know where to run first now that he had a bag full of money. He didn't have to know how many galleons there were to a pound to know that he was holding more money than he ever had in his whole life. More money than even Dudley ever had. "Might as well get your uniform," said Hagrid, nodding towards Madame Malkin's robe for all occasions. "Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off for a pick-me-up in the leaky cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts." He did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shop alone, feeling nervous. Would you like to pick up now in this case?
Sure.
As we are now in the robe shop.
Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch dressed in all mauve. "Hogwarts, dear," she said when Harry started to speak. "Got the lot here, another young man being fitted up just now, in fact." In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it to the right length. "Hello," said the boy. "Hogwarts, too?" "Yes," said Harry. "My father's next door buying my books, and mother's up the street looking at wands," said the boy. He had a bored, drawling voice. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one, and I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. "Have you got your own broom?" the boy went on. "No," said Harry. "Play Quidditch at all?" "No," Harry said again, wondering what on earth Quidditch could be. "I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet?" "No," said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. "Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you?" For the record, Miss Swirl is a Hufflepuff, and so is Miss Z, in my very firm opinion, and they are two of the best people I know.
Have we gone over the houses yet?
We have not.
Oh.
I'm just saying, Hufflepuff is not bad.
Do we need to say what we are yet, or hang on to that?
You're going to come back for that chapter.
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. "I say, look at that man," said the boy suddenly, nodding toward the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry and pointing at 2 large ice cream cones to show he couldn't come in. "That's Hagrid," said Harry, pleased to know something the boy didn't. "He works at Hogwarts." "Oh," said the boy. "I've heard of him. He's sort of a servant, isn't he?" "He's the gamekeeper," said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every second. "Yes, exactly. I've heard he's sort of savage. Lives in a hut on the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk, tries to do magic, and ends up setting fire to his bed." "I think he's brilliant," said Harry coldly. "Do you?" said the boy with a slight sneer. "Why is he with you? Where are your parents?" "They're dead," said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going into the matter with this boy. Oh, sorry, said the other, not sounding sorry at all. But they were our kind, weren't they? They were a witch and a wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the others sort in, do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter, I imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway? What's a surname?
It's your last name.
Yeah, sometimes British people say things weird. But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, "That's you done, my dear." And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. "Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose," said the drawling boy. Harry was rather quiet as he ate the ice cream Hagrid had bought him. Chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts.
"What's up?" said Hagrid. "Nothing," Harry lied. "They stopped to buy parchment and quills." So they're basically buying pencil
Pen
and
paper.
paper.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Harry cheered up a bit when he found a bottle of ink. They changed color as he wrote. When they had left the shop, he said, "Hagrid, what's Quidditch?" "Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know, not knowing about Quidditch." "Don't make me feel worse," said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy in Madame Malkin's. And he said people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. "You're not from a Muggle family." If he'd known who you were, he's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw what everyone in the Leaky Cauldron was like when they saw you. Anyways, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones with magic in them in a long line of muggles. Look at your mom. Look at what she had for a sister. So what is Quidditch?
Wait, before we get to that part. The Dursleys are like the mugglest of muggles.
They are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And not nice ones, as we all know. Yeah.
They are not nice.
So what is Quidditch?
So what is Quidditch? It's our sport, wizard sport. It's like soccer in the Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch. Played up in the air on broomsticks. And there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules. So what are Slytherin and Hufflepuff? Schoolhouses. There's 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of toughers, but I bet I'm a Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily. Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin, said Hagrid darkly. There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one.
Pause there. For the record, Slytherins are also not bad. Every bad witch is a Slytherin, but not every Slytherin is a bad witch.
Right.
Kind of like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
My dad's a Slytherin, for sure. Would you agree? You know my dad.
I don't know. He could be one of the other houses. There are 4.
I think he's a Slytherin. They have 4 just like we have 4, but they're different. We'll get there. Can I take over?
Yeah, you took the book, so go.
Well, sorry. You know who was at Hogwarts? Years and years ago, said Hagrid. They bought Harry's schoolbooks in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones, bound in leather, books the size of postage stamps covered in silk, books full of peculiar symbols, and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who never read anything, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from curses and counter-curses, bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges, hair loss, jelly legs, tongue-tying, and much, much more, by Professor Vindicus Viridian. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world except in very special circumstances, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You'll need a lot more study before you get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It says pewter on your list. But they got a nice set of scales for weighing potion ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. Then they visited the apothecary, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell, a mixture of bad eggs and rotted cabbages. Cabbages. That was a weird way I pronounced that. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor. Jars of herbs, dried roots, and bright powders lined the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings of fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. while Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry. Harry himself examined the silver unicorn horns at 21 galleons each and a minuscule glittery black beetle eyes, 5 nuts a scoop. Outside the apothecary, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just your wand left. Oh yeah, and I still haven't got you a birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Tell you what, I'll get your animal. Not a toad. Toads went out of fashion years ago. You'd be laughed at. Okay. And I don't like cats. They make me sneeze. I'll get you an owl. All the kids want owls. They're dead useful. Carry your mail and everything.
Exactly.
20 minutes later, they left Elop's Owl Emporium, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering, jewel-bright eyes. Harry now carried a large cage that held a beautiful snowy owl, fast asleep with her head under her wing. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, said Hagrid gruffly. Don't expect you've had a lot of presents from them Dursleys. Just Ollivanders left now. Only place for wand, Ollivanders. And you've got to have the best wand. A magic wand. This was what Harry had really been looking forward to. Ooh, it goes into Ollivanders. Ollivanders is so cool. The last shop was narrow and shabby. Peeling gold letters over the door read Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 B.C. A single wand lay on a faded purple cushion in the dusty window. I'm going to let you take over, but you have to promise to let me read the good part.
Okay. Just stop me whenever we get here.
Okay.
Or get there. Right here?
Mm-hmm.
A tingling bell rang somewhere in the depths of the shop as they stepped inside. It was a tiny place, empty except for a single spindly chair that Hagrid sat on to wait. Harry felt strangely, as he thought he had entered a very strict library. He swallowed a lot of new questions that had just occurred to him and looked, instead, at the thousands of narrow boxes piled neatly right up to the ceiling. For some reason, the back of his neck prickled. The very dust and silence in here seemed to tingle with some secret magic. "Good afternoon," said a soft voice. Harry jumped. Hagrid must have jumped too, because there was a loud crunching noise, and he got quickly off the spindly chair. An old man was standing before him, his wide, pale eyes shining like moons through the gloom of the shop. "Hello," said Harry awkwardly. "Ah, yes," said the man. Yes, I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter." It wasn't a question. "You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand. 10 1/4 inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice wand for charm work." Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he would blink. Those silvery eyes were a bit creepy. "Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand, 11 inches, pliable, a little more power and excellent for transfiguration. Well, I say your father favored it. It's really the wand that chooses the wizard, of course." Mr. Ollivander had come so close that he and Harry were almost nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes. And that's where Mr. Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with a long white finger. "I'm so sorry to say I sold the wand that did it," he said softly. 13 1/2 inches, powerful wand, very powerful. And in the wrong hands, well, if I'd known what that wand was going out into the world to do. He shook his head, and then to Harry's relief spotted Hagrid. Rubius Hagrid. How nice to see you again. Oak, 16 inches, rather bendy, wasn't it?" "It was, sir, yes," said Hagrid. "Good one, that one. But I suppose they snapped it in half when you got expelled." What does expelled mean, Miss Kessler?
Kicked out.
Kicked out. Uh-oh.
Yeah, Hagrid. He told us that he got expelled in his 3rd year, but not why.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
Yeah.
I wasn't here for that.
You weren't here for that chapter,
said Mr. Ollivander, suddenly stern. Yes, they did, yes," said Hagrid, shuffling his feet. "I've still got the pieces, though." he added brightly. But you don't use them, said Mr. Ollivander sharply. Oh, no, sir, said Hagrid quickly. Harry noticed he gripped his pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke. Said Mr. Ollivander, giving Hagrid a piercing look. Well now, Mr. Potter, let me see. He pulled a long tape measure with silver markings out of his pocket. Which is your wand arm? Well, I'm right-handed, said Harry. Hold out your arm. That's it. He measured Harry from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and round his head. As he measured, he said, every Ollivander wand has a core of a powerful substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and the heartstrings of dragons. No two Ollivander wands are the same, just as no two unicorns, dragons, or phoenixes are quite the same. And of course you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand. Harry suddenly realized that the tape measure, which was measuring between his nostrils, was doing this on its own. Mr. Ollivander was flitting around the shelves, taking down boxes.
Here comes the good part. That will do, he said, and the tape measure crumpled into the heap on the floor. Right then, Mr. Potter. Try this one. Beechwood and dragon heartstring, 9 inches, nice and flexible. Just take it and give it a wave. Harry took the wand and, feeling very foolish, waved it around a bit. But Mr. Ollivander snatched it out of his hand almost at once. Maple and phoenix feather, 7 inches, quite whippy. Try. Harry tried, but he had hardly raised the wand when it, too, was snatched back by Mr. Ollivander. No. Here. Ebony and unicorn hair, 8.5 inches, springy. Go on, try it out. Harry tried, and tried. He had no idea what Mr. Ollivander was waiting for. The pile of tried wands was mounting higher and higher on the spindly chair, but the more wands Mr. Ollivander pulled from the shelves, the happier he seemed to become. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder now. Yes, why not? Unusual combination. Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry took the wand. He felt a sudden warmth in his fingers. He raised the wand above his head, brought it swishing down through the dusty air, and a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light onto the walls. Hagrid whooped and clapped, and Mr. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed! Oh, very good! Well. How curious! How very curious!" He put Harry's wand back into its box and wrapped it in brown paper, still muttering, Curious. Sorry, said Harry, but what's curious? Mr. Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather. Just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. Do you have chill bumps?
I do, yeah.
Full body chills.
Okay.
Harry swallowed. Yes, 13.5 inches. Curious indeed how these things happen. The wand chooses the wizard, remember. I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great. Harry shivered. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander too much. He paid 7 gold galleons for his wand, and Mr. Ollivander bowed them from his shop. The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Harry and Hagrid made their way back down Diagon Alley, back through the wall, back through the leaky cauldron, now empty. Harry didn't speak at all as they walked down the road. He didn't even notice how much people were gawking at them on the underground, laden as they were with all their funny-shaped packages, with a snowy owl asleep in its cage on Harry's lap. Up another escalator, out into Paddington Station. Harry only realized where they were when Hagrid tapped him on the shoulder. Got time for a bite to eat before your train leaves, he said. He bought Harry a hamburger, and they sat down on plastic seats to eat them. Harry kept looking around. Everything looked so strange somehow. You all right, Harry? You're very quiet, said Hagrid. Harry wasn't sure he could explain. He'd just had the best birthday of his life, and yet... He chewed his hamburger, trying to find the words. Everyone thinks I'm special, he said at last. All those people in the Leaky Cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander, but I don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great things? I'm famous, and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. I don't know what happened when the night my parents died. Hagrid leaned across the table. Behind the wild beard and eyebrows he wore a very kind smile. Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine. Just be yourself. I know it's hard. You've been singled out, and that's always hard. But you'll have a great time at Hogwarts. I did. Still do, as a matter of fact. Hagrid helped Harry onto the train that would take him back to the Dursleys, then handed him an envelope. Your ticket for Hogwarts, he said. 1st of September, King's Cross. It's all on your ticket. Any problems with the Dursleys, send me a letter with your owl. She'll know where to find me. See you soon, Harry. The train pulled out of the station. Harry wanted to watch Hagrid until he was out of sight. He rose in his seat and pressed his nose against the window, but he blinked and Hagrid had gone. That is the end of this very long chapter. But tomorrow we get to hear about how Harry gets to Hogwarts.
Ooh.
Thank you very much for joining me, Mr. Ferguson. How did you like it?
It's been a long time since I've read that book, so it's very good to read that again. A lot of fun memories reading Harry Potter books, and of course watching the movies. I don't know if it's too early to talk, but did the kids know about Pottermore or anything that they can do online to figure out some of these things, like what wands they would get or things
if you
like
haven't
that?
heard me and Miss World talk about Pottermore, it's awesome. You can take a quiz to find out what your wand would be. And there's lots of other fun stuff on there. And J.K. Rowling actually just released another site called Harry Potter at Home for all of us who are stuck inside during this crazy quarantine.
I didn't know that.
She's amazing.
And there are a lot of things on Pottermore that have not been discussed yet.
Yeah, so if you're trying to avoid spoilers, don't go there. And also, don't watch the movies until we finish the book.
That's
Deal?
right.
You've already seen them.
I've already seen them.
Anyways, bye.
Bye.